Hey guys, what's up? Happy Monday, and welcome to our new podcast called Face It.
For years, I've been saying you have to confront yourself to improve yourself. You have to face it. So that's the name of the show, and we're sticking to it.
I wanted to start the show off with a bang, so I figured, what is juicy, but inspirational, but also moves the needle? So what better story to talk about than my father, Carlos Hernandez. So he was a heroin addict for 3 years. The reason why I want to start with this story for the first episode is because all of us out there at some point in time are struggling with addiction, no matter what that is. Pills, drugs, alcohol, behaviors, food, the list goes on and on. So let's get into it. My first question to my father is, how did it feel to be in the midst of addiction? And also, how did it feel to be the person that nobody ever thought would fall into heroin abuse and then actually go through it?
Nobody ever says, I want to be a drug addict. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I want to start doing drugs. But life happens. Things happen. And for me, I was in a really bad position, a bad moment in my life where I was experiencing depression for different reasons. And the person was there. He offered it to me. I took it, and I was immediately hooked. I remember prior people saying, I was hooked right away. And I thought to myself, how is that even possible? How can somebody in a split moment, like in one moment, say, I am hooked, I love this drug? But for me, that's how it happened. The feeling the substance gave me was a feeling of, you forget things. You feel happy. You're like, I feel good. This is great. And so that's how the addiction starts. I used to see addiction as before I fell into drugs, I saw it as a weakness. Anybody that did drugs, I was like, they have no self-control. I would even mock it. And it was interesting to me that I fell into it to that degree, a heroin addict, which was it was a really sad moment for me. I was super depressed. It was very difficult for me I couldn't leave it. I went to 4 different rehabilitation centers. I couldn't leave it. It was such a struggle for me. What was also very difficult is that because I was such a straight arrow, I was a fitness trainer at that time, full time. I was training 12 to 15 clients a day. I was extremely busy. And people, when I fell into it, I remember people being confused and saying, what happened? Like, what happened, Carlos? How did you fall into this? So we're human. If it's one thing that I've learned is that we all make mistakes. We all fall. At some point or another, we fall. Sometimes we fall publicly, and sometimes we fall in secret, where nobody sees it. It's just you know it. So that's my answer for the first question.
So I really like what you said there about how, sometimes we fall in public and sometimes we fall in private. And the reality is that, most of us, actually all of us, don't put our entire lives on social media, ever. And even if we do, even if we are, social media people and, we're a fan of, documenting, we're still posting the highlight reels. We're still posting what we want people to see. And that goes for everybody. It's nothing wrong with that, but that's the truth, right? We need to post digestible things to social media, okay? But the way that you let yourself down and the way that you fail in private will show up in public. How does it show up? It'll show up in, number one, in yourself, when you show up for everybody else except yourself, right? Somebody calls you, your parents call you, your kids call you, your husband calls you, your wife calls you, and you're like, yes, 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 yes. But when it comes to you, you're like, no, I absolutely cannot accommodate for myself whatsoever. That is a self letdown. You are literally dismantling yourself completely. And not to mention, you are also disrespecting the people around you because you're not showing up the best that you can be for yourself. So I really want you to think about that, because sometimes we how do I say this, where we think that we're giving it our all, and we are. I'm not discrediting that. However, in the process of that situation, right, like people always say, the cup is empty. What are you pouring from the cup if it's empty? Absolutely nothing. So and then also you get your friends. You might let your friends down. Your friend might let you down because she's going through a rough time. He's going through a rough time, right? You say the wrong thing at the wrong time because you're just so overwhelmed. you and your husband go through like a little spat when it could have totally been avoided because you guys are both, burnt out. So these things pile up again and again. And yeah, that was probably my favorite part of what you said right now to answer the question. To move on to the second one, I really wanted to ask, kind of like to segue in, was there any point that you felt like this is like just how it is? And then when was it, if at any point you really thought that was just going to be your life in addiction?
I had several of those moments when I told myself, man, I really think that I'm going to be a heroin addict for the rest of my life. One of the first times that I thought that was when I went to a rehabilitation center for 30 days. I was withdrawals. The withdrawals are horrible in when it comes to opiates. And I remember coming out of those 30 days and going right back to do the drug. And I was like, why am I doing this? I went to another rehab, same thing. It happened 4 times where I would fall back into addiction. And I remember one of the last times that I went to the 4th rehab, I remember being at home and I started to cry. And I was praying to God, and I told God, I said, you've seen me try. Like, you've seen me like go to the rehabs. You've seen me, do my part, but I can't beat this. And I was crying and crying. And this moment, it sounds a bit like a movie, because I was crying in my room, and there was a radio on in the kitchen, and a song by Michael Jackson came on called, oh my gosh, Man in the Mirror. It says, I'm asking him to change his ways. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to make your world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. So that song came on, and I remember thinking like, oh my God, I think that God's talking to me. Then my phone rings. Not my phone, but my sister's phone rings, and it's my uncle that lived in at that time, he lived in Reynosa. And they're like, hey, I hear you're in trouble, come with me. And so I said, let's go. I left, and I left the States, and I went to Mexico. And that was the beginning of me beating addiction. But it was such a strange feeling to feel controlled by something, and that's what addiction does. Addiction controls you. You fight it, but your body, it got to the point for me where, and I think anybody that's done drugs at any point, it turns into you're doing the drug just to function. I wasn't doing it to get high anymore. It was just simply, I couldn't carry my son if I wasn't high, because I felt like I was 90 years old, so it's a horrible cycle. Fortunately, I was able to make that decision. I feel God, he took me to that place. I left, and that was the beginning of me starting to get better.
So yeah, that really reminds me of these particular situations. So first of all, I remember my father telling me that those things happened, that he had to go to all these rehabs, and that he felt like a 90-year-old man at this exceptionally young age. And there's this one, or actually these 2 particular moments where he calls me, and at the time I was with my mom. I remember where I was sitting. I was on the couch. I was watching TV. It was like my little spot every day after school. And he calls me, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna have to be leaving for a while. And I'm confused. And I was just like, okay, well, like, why is my dad going to be leaving? Like, I don't understand. I don't remember how old I was, to be honest, but I was quite young. And I think he could tell that I was confused. So then he's like, well, when I come back, I'm going to be a better man, but you won't see me for I think it was 4 or 6 months or something like that. And that was true. Well, for the record, he did come back a better man. But also there was some other instances where preface, I ask a lot of questions. I'm very why. I will ask you why a lot if you get to know me. So I would see him smoke cigarettes, or just kind of like, that is kind of what he did more in public, right? So that's the thing that I questioned a lot. We would get in the car, and I would see him smoke one, and I would say, so when are you going to stop? And part of the reason was because I thought it smelled really bad. And so he's like, I promise, I'm going to stop. That went on for God knows how long. And eventually I started saying, well, you said you were going to stop at this time, but you didn't. So are you going to stop now? He's like, yes. He never stopped. Boom, boom, boom. He leaves, comes back, and it stopped. And it was really hard, but also like in a certain sense, there was like I don't know how to like verbalize this. I've never like spoken about this before like this, where I was almost like accepting of what was happening, like, oh, this is just, I guess, going to be how it is. And I never felt embarrassed. I'm not sure if like my dad ever thought that I felt embarrassed, but I didn't. I think I was just more like feeling disappointed that he didn't stop when I asked him to stop. You know what I mean? So yeah. But I mean, I guess it all worked out. So the third question that I wanted to ask him was, okay guys, I'm sorry, we had to kind of like pause it. I was getting a little bit emotional, but the next thing that I wanted to ask was, at any point, did you feel like Tristan and I would also turn to drug abuse as well?
Gosh, that's a very, it's a good question, and it's a difficult question. It reminds me, in the rehabs that I spoke about that I went to during that time, no counselor that I would speak to at these rehabs would quite impact me. It was always, I would sit with him, and it felt very mechanical for the most part. But on the last rehab that I went to, I remember laying in bed. My body was suffering. I was in the pain that I was experiencing was at a level 10. I felt like I was going to die. And I was refusing to take medication. The doctor would come in, or the nurses would come in to give me my medication, and I would refuse it. Said, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take it. And I told him that I feel worse when I take your medication, so I'm not going to take it. In fact, it caused the whole problem within the rehab, because without me knowing, I got there was about 18 more humans in this rehab that also had drug problems that decided not to take their medication because they saw that I wasn't. So I was turning into a problem in this rehab. And so the doctor walks in, and he looks at me and he says, "You have kids?" I said, "Yes, I do. I have 2. And he's like, "And you're not going to leave this drug? What else do you need?" He goes, "You have 2 children. Do you want them, if you end up dying, do you want them to say, my father was a heroin addict?" And for some reason, the way he told me that was so, even though I was thrown on that bed, I remember tears coming out of my eyes. And I said, no. And from that moment forward, I said, I'm going to beat this. And so I couldn't stand the fact, like I said, I cannot die a heroin addict. Like that is not going to happen. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I have to get clean. This is not me. One of the things that I would refuse at these rehabs, when I would sit down, they would, the whole class was there, and you would have to get up and say hi. I would have to say, "Hi, my name is Carlos, and I'm a heroin addict." And that was a program. And I would refuse to say that. And they would get mad at me. I would say, "Hi, I'm Carlos. I made a mistake." And they're like, "You have to say, you have to confront this issue." And I said, no. I was so gun-ho on the fact that I've never been a heroin addict. I was just simply a person that was in a very bad spot. I took this substance, which I became addicted to, but I am not a heroin addict. It was just I made a mistake. And so I stuck to that. And to this day, I stick to that. It's not, I don't feel in any way, shape, or form, drawn to that substance. to drugs. So I stuck to it. But I do remember that. And I told myself, I'm going to beat this, and I'm going to, at that time I was saying, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to show the world. I'm going to show my kids. I was, at that point in time, you're trying to grab a hold of anything you can to push forward. So I had to face it.
So that like makes me want to bring up how throughout, as long as I can remember, my dad has always been somebody to just like teach me, right? Like give me life lessons on everything. Just the other day, we were driving and I don't know, I was making some sort of joke and I'm like, oh, haha, imagine I get like, I don't know, it was like tacos for dinner or this for dinner. Well, it was just like a joke that we were saying. I don't remember the full context, but anyway, he like turned that into like this like monumental like life lesson or something. Of course, I don't recall all the details, but it's simple stuff like that. Instead of him adding on to it, he'll just be like, well, actually, this. It's really funny. It's also slightly has been a little bit annoying, but full credits, and I'm so like thankful and grateful for him because that is entirely why like I am just the way that I am. And that's kind of when I started to develop my own sense of self and how I also I started to realize that what we focus on, we literally create. And it all started when he first told me that story that he just told about how he was not going to admit that he was a heroin addict. And like when he told me that, as I continued to think about it, it's like, yeah, why would you admit that? That is like really stupid, to be honest with you. Like, so from there forward and all the other little things, it started to really like develop everything. And so it's true for all of us, right? If we think about something, like those things are going to start to appear more in our life. So now the next question, and I think this is going to wrap it up, guys. We'll probably continue more on this journey in another episode. But I wanted to ask, why were you still such a good dad and father despite being consistently under the influence? Because I feel like that's like hard, You're going through this and you're still showing up the best that you can, being a good person and all these things. So how? Why?
So I was doing my best to be a good dad. Obviously, I was a heroin addict, but I do remember one of the things that during that whole time period of me being addicted to heroin, I always knew that it was bad. Every time that I would shoot up, I would always tell myself, like, why am I doing this? Like, why? This is wrong. And so that was always very clear to me, always. And so, I would do my best to be there for my kids. I was getting them every other weekend. Of course, my mom was helping, my sister at that time. And so, I felt I had a good support from my family, that I was able to be, a decent dad considering the circumstance. But it was hard. I mean, I felt it was embarrassing. I remember my kids asking me, like she mentioned, like, why am I smoking? I was never a smoker, but of course, when you're addicted to that type of substance, you end up being addicted to other things. And so it was challenging. It was horrible, but I did my best, and it's kind of flattering the fact that my daughter thinks that I was still relatively a decent dad, considering, I was a drug addict. So, but that's why I felt that I had to, because I was doing drugs, I was like, I need to be present, as much as I can. And when I wasn't feeling well, when I was, sick, because I didn't have the drug, I would stay away. It was horrible. It was that whole time was just shows you how deep the hole can go. And obviously, that hole could have gotten deeper. I could have passed away. There's a lot of people that I know from that time period that have passed away because of the drug. And so I'm very fortunate. I thank God every day for, giving me that second opportunity. And also, one of the things that I tell a lot of people, I've gone to different rehabs to speak and give some inspiration. I always tell people, asking for help is a sign of strength. Like, when you ask for help, it doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you strong. What does it say? It says, you know what? I can identify that I can't do it on my own. I need some help. And that is strength. And so, guys, out there, if you guys are experiencing any type of addiction, reach out for help. It could be something small. It could be, I don't know, cigarettes. Obviously, that's not something small. Some things kill you slowly. It could be pills, right? Sometimes it starts, you have a knee pain, and so you take some kind of prescription pill, and then by the time you know it, you're addicted to it. That happens really often. And so there's ways around it. There's a lot of things you can do to beat it, but again, you have to confront it. So, all right, guys, that's the first episode. We'll see you guys real soon.
Okay, guys, that about wraps it up for this episode. We're going to be obviously continuing this conversation on a future episode, but for now, please let us know in the comments what you resonated with the most, or what your favorite part of this first podcast was. And please like, comment, and share on our videos. Please follow us, okay? We're going to be posting clips here and there. Or if you guys even are currently struggling with any sort of addiction, please reach out, because I think we can help you.